Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be creating a potion and we're going to use geometry nodes for displacement of the top of the potion. We're going to create bubbles, a nice material procedural as well, and we'll animate the entire thing. Now from whomever is watching this, about 86% are not subscribed yet. So if you do like this, please leave a like, a comment, and most importantly subscribe so you'll be up to date as well. Now enjoy. So hit Shift A and let's just create a potion first, I guess. Just add a cube. If you already have the cube, even better. And let's add a subdivision modifier of 2 to just see what that looks like. Something like that. So let's actually start off by going in edit mode and insetting this top face. Something like that. Press GZ and extrude it a little bit like so. Press EZ once again. Press Ctrl R to add an edge loop there. Escape, scale that up. Like that, we're actually going to be creating that round top. And we can just bevel that as well. Ctrl B, bevel it once. There we go. And let's actually inset or no, we can just delete the top. There we go. And so now let's create a bit more of a bulky shape, I suppose. So what we can do is we can hit Ctrl R there and Alt Z and just select that entire edge loop. And we can just scale this up to make this like a bulkier look of the potion. I quite like that. And let's also add an edge loop more at the bottom. Or we can actually press 3 and select that face, and we can press I to just inset that so the bottom becomes more of a flat kind of shape. Now we can hit right mouse and shade smooth. There we go. Beautiful. Let's actually create this or select this entire face loop. Press 3, that is face select, right? And double click or alt click will select your loop. Then we can just scale this up, Shift Z if you don't want to scale in the Z direction. And we can scale this up a little bit more perhaps. There we go. And we can add an edge loop here to create more of a cool kind of intersection there. There we go. And let's double click on the top edge and let's press E and escape and Alt S, I guess, to make it scale down a little bit, and press S as well to just scale it inwards a slight bit. There we go. Let's also hit add modifier and solidify. There we go. And let's take a look at what that looks like. And let's just crank that in front of our subdivision, right? So we can actually add some nice thickness here. And we get a nice thick looking glass later on. I think that's going to be cool. And let's actually set our subdiv to 3 as well. Beautiful. Now, what we can do is just visualize this right away. So let's go to render view, let's go to cycles, and I'm going to set this to GPU as well. And let's make a glass material, I suppose. Drag this to the left, let's set this to shader editor, and hit new, press N to hide that thing. Now I'm not going to work with a principled BSDF right away, so delete that and hit Shift A and find a glass BSDF, I suppose. Here we go. It's easy enough, I suppose, right? When we work with glass, a glass BSDF is quite close to what we will have for glass. And now let's actually add a quick environment texture. World set to environment texture, open, downloads, HDRI. I'm just saying the paths I take, and I'm opening up a burnt warehouse HDRI. There we go. Now let's go to render, let's go to film and check a transparent. There we go. So now we still see through the glass, which may not be completely what you want. But I'm just gonna hit Shift A and find a quick plane, scale that up, move it down there, and in edit mode select that back edge, EZ, and select that edge and Ctrl B and scroll up a few times. So we get a nice smooth bevel, shade smooth, and let's hit numpad 0. This is our camera. Let's just move our camera to where we want our viewport, like that. And press Ctrl Alt numpad 0. There we go. GZZ can make your camera move away or zoom out pretty much. GZZ. There we go. And let's rotate our background there. And Ctrl B, draw a rectangle around your camera. And now we have a beautiful kind of setting for our potion, right? We can actually see what is going on. So let's go to our environment, our world. Oh my god, back to layout quick. And let's set this to world in our shader tab. Let's press Ctrl T on our burnt warehouse. If nothing happens for you, go to Edit in Blender, Preferences, and go to your add-ons and enable Node Wrangler. important. And then we can actually rotate this around to get the lighting that we are looking for pretty much. Let's delete our light as well. Delete. So it is only dependent on our actual 3D kind of world. Right, there we go. And let's just scale up our plane. There we go. Quite cool, quite cool. Alright, so now we can actually start worrying about how this potion is going to look. So obviously, this glass is now very easy and it already looks quite cool, I would say. If we want to change some roughness, if we want to add a little bit of noise, we can absolutely do that. So hit Shift A and find a noise texture, and we can now Ctrl Shift click on that to see how it looks. Let's add a little bit of roughness, add a little bit of detail as well, and let's crank down the scale a tiny bit, and maybe a bit more detail. There we go. Drag it to the left, hit Shift A, find a color ramp converter, and let's drag these values a little bit closer as well. Now perhaps we need even more detail. I want a nice level of detail, something like that. And then we can crank that into the roughness of our glass. There we go. And there we go. Now our glass is going to be quite glossy and quite rough on some parts, right? Because the black values here will be completely glossy and the white values will be completely rough. I don't want that. I want it to be quite glossy, so I'm going to set my black value to a tiny bit lighter than black. And I'm going to set my white values to be quite close to the black values there. So now we actually have a very subtle kind of mix between completely glossy or a bit more toned down in terms of roughness. And we can use the same noise texture for a normal map, right? So we can drag this out to another color ramp, and we can drag these values a bit closer as well. Drag this out into a bump and set it to be height. Now drag your normal into the normal, and we can actually get a little bit of a normal map going on. The strength is quite high now, so we can just drag that down. All right, and let's just see how that looks. Something like that. And maybe we can drag these values even closer so that bump doesn't appear everywhere we go. Now let's see how that correlates with our roughness. So the wider spots are supposed to be more rough. So I want there to be more bump as well, which means that these areas here, for example, and these areas, you can just press D and draw in your, or hold D and draw, and we can keep a look on these areas here. They should be the most bumpy. Right, so Ctrl Shift click here, and we can now just try and tweak these values so that they come close to what we had there as well. Right, something like that. I suppose. See how that relates to the bump. And let's just crank the strength up so we can actually see what is going on. Right, so the values there are getting nice and bumpy for sure. And maybe a bit more like that. I think that looks quite fine. And then we can crank down that strength. So it is visible, but a bit toned down, I suppose. All right, something like that. And so we can even just play around more with these values to really make them pop a bit more. I think we're good. I think we're good. Let's just keep it like this for now, at least. Yeah, that looks nice. So there we go. Let's press D and right mouse to get rid of these annotations real quick. There must be a better way, but I'm just erasing them like that. So that already looks quite interesting, I think. I'm going to keep the rest of the glass material a little bit simplistic, because I also want to take a look at the contents of the potion, of course. So how do we do that? Well, let's go to solid view and let's select what we want to be our fluids, right? So what we can do is hit tab, and in front view, we should hide our background for now. Press H, select our bottle, tab, Alt Z. So let's say I want my bottle to be filled up to, let's say here for now. We can hit Shift D, Escape P, selection. Now this may be too much kind of filling of the potion if we want to make it do magic. So let's change that. Press tab, and let's just move our top points here a bit lower. right? So let's scale this up a little bit. And let's just shape this so it is nicely in the middle of our potion, right? We can just shape this manually. It's no problem at all. Something like that. Maybe a bit smaller there. Like so. Let's see. I think that looks fine. And in edit mode, we can actually fill this top face as well. And we can actually add a nice edge loop here. Like that. Now, in reality, this is not how your liquids go on your surface of a flask, on the surface of whatever. Your liquids will have bonds. They have kind of adhesive strengths that they will use to, well, stick a bit to the glass surface like that, right? They are kind of sticking together a little bit, like so. That is usually how you would see a liquid in your glass, for example, as well. So we want to make that happen. So how do we do that? Well, let's select this face, press I and inset that a little bit. Let's go to front view. And we can now move this down a tiny little bit like so, right? So let's see how that looks. Let's hide our flask. And you can now see that we already get that motion a little bit. So we can now just inset this once again to define exactly how strong we want that to be. Select this edge loop, scale this up a little bit like that. And we can even move it up ever so slightly like that. Double click that one. We can even scale this inwards a little bit, make it a bit more smooth or supple like that, right? So it's not too crazy, but it shows a little bit. Let's hide our actual flask, and there we go. Now let's go to rendered view, and now we have got glass inside of glass. Thank you so much for watching part 1, and the next parts will create the materials, we'll look into the geometry node setup, we'll tie everything together nicely. If you like this, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!